I want to talk about another case with the time we have. We're tracking this, a retired Air Force general. He is well known for his research into UAP UFOs, William Neil McCasland.
Monica Reza. Is there a connection? Let's bring in former FBI special agent in charge of the FBI's Tucson office, Mr. Andrew Black. Good to see you again, sir. What's your take?
Some disappearances feel random, others feel connected. And then there are cases that sit somewhere in between, where nothing is confirmed, but nothing feels like a coincidence either. Over the years, a few names have surfaced online, quietly mentioned in discussions, forums, and unexplained lists. People like
Reza,
William N. McCasland, Melissa Casias, and Anthony Chavez. At first glance, they seem like separate cases, different names, different lives. But the way they're talked about suggests something else, a pattern that isn't fully visible. Let's start with the name that appears the most.
Reza.
It's a name that has quietly spread across the internet, often mentioned alongside secrecy, advanced research, and unexplained disappearances. In many discussions,
Reza
is linked to the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory, a place known for cutting-edge space exploration, high-level engineering, and projects that operate far beyond public visibility. According to these circulating claims, Monica wasn't just another employee. The narrative suggests someone deeply involved in specialized, possibly sensitive work. The kind of work that doesn't make headlines, but shapes the future behind closed doors. And then, according to these stories, that person was suddenly gone. No dramatic announcement, no official statement, no clear timeline of events, just a name that seems to appear out of nowhere, tied to a disappearance that no one can fully explain.
Monica Reza. Is there a connection? Let's bring in former FBI special agent in charge of the FBI's Tucson office, Mr. Andrew Black. Good to see you again, sir. What's your take?
The way it's described makes it feel unsettling, as if something important happened, but was never meant to be known. There are no detailed reports, no confirmed last sightings, no investigation records that clearly outline what happened. Just fragments of a story, repeated enough times that it starts to feel real. But this is where everything becomes uncertain. Because when you step away from the speculation and look for facts, the trail goes cold. There is no verified evidence confirming that
Reza
ever worked at NASA JPL. No official records, no credible documentation, no acknowledgement from reliable sources that such a disappearance ever took place. The story exists almost entirely within online discussions, where details are often repeated but rarely proven. And that's what makes it so strange. Because despite the lack of confirmation, the story refuses to disappear. It continues to circulate, to grow, to evolve, shared in forums, videos, and conversations where mystery often takes the place of evidence. Over time, the line between fact and fiction begins to blur, and what started as a name becomes something more. A question, a possibility, a quiet suspicion that lingers in the background. Was there ever a real person behind this story? Or is this a case where the mystery itself was created, shaped, and amplified until it felt real enough to believe? That uncertainty is what gives the story its edge. Not the disappearance itself, but the fact that no one can say for sure whether there was ever anything to disappear from in the first place. And in a strange way, that makes it even more unsettling. Because sometimes, the most disturbing mysteries aren't the ones with missing answers. They're the ones where the truth might never have existed at all. William N. McCasland. Among the names that quietly circulate in discussions about unexplained disappearances, William N. McCasland stands out for a different reason. Not because of a widely documented case, but because of how little verified information actually exists. His name appears in lists, in conversations, and in theories, often presented as someone who vanished under unclear or suspicious circumstances. And yet, when you try to trace the story back to its origin, the details begin to fall apart.
This a retired Air Force general. He is well known for his research into UAP UFOs. William Neil McCasland. He went missing in New Mexico back in February, and authorities are now saying that they're in fact concerned for his safety here.
Unlike high-profile missing person cases, there are no clear timelines attached to William N. McCasland. No confirmed last sighting, no official investigation records that are easily accessible to the public. It's as if the story exists in fragments, pieces of information that never fully connect. That alone creates a strange kind of tension because in most real disappearances, there is always something to follow. A report, a witness, a moment where everything changed. Here, that moment is missing. Some discussions suggest that his disappearance may have been linked to circumstances that were never made public, hinting at possibilities without ever confirming them. But these claims remain exactly that: unverified, unsupported, and difficult to prove. There is no strong evidence pointing toward foul play, no official confirmation of an abduction, and no clear indication that a disappearance even occurred in the way it's often described online. And yet, the name continues to appear. That's what makes this case feel different. It's not just about a missing person. It's about the presence of a story without a solid foundation. Over time, repetition gives it weight. The more it's mentioned, the more real it begins to feel, even without evidence to support it. People start connecting dots that may not exist, building narratives around silence. But silence can be misleading. Sometimes it doesn't hide a mystery. It simply reflects the absence of one. In the case of William N. McCasland, the unsettling part isn't what happened, but whether anything happened at all. The lack of verified information leaves the story suspended between possibility and illusion. And that uncertainty creates its own kind of unease, where the question is no longer just about a disappearance, but about the reality of the story itself. Melissa Casias. Among the lesser-known names that surface in discussions about unexplained disappearances, Melissa Casias is one that quietly lingers without clear answers. Unlike widely documented cases that come with timelines, investigations, and media coverage, this name appears almost like a shadow, present, but without a fully formed story behind it. There are mentions of her being missing, often grouped with other names that are said to have vanished under unclear circumstances, but when you begin to look deeper, something feels off. There are no detailed reports that clearly explain when she disappeared, where it happened, or under what conditions. No widely recognized news coverage. No official statements that outline the situation. Just a name, repeated enough times that it begins to feel like a real case. And that's where the unease begins.
Out there knows something to be brave. If they have any love in their heart to think what it would be like to go through something like this.
Because in most genuine missing person cases, there is always something to hold on to. A last known location, a timeline, a series of events that can be followed. Even when the truth is unknown, the structure of the story is usually clear. But here, that structure is missing. It's as if the story never fully formed, yet somehow continues to exist. Some online discussions suggest possibilities, hinting at hidden circumstances or unexplained events. But these ideas are built on speculation rather than evidence. There is no confirmed link to any crime, no verified indication of abduction, and no clear proof that a disappearance occurred in the way it is often described. And still, the name doesn't disappear. It continues to circulate, appearing in lists, videos, and conversations that blur the line between fact and theory. Over time, repetition gives the story a kind of weight, even in the absence of proof. People begin to assume there must be something behind it, something hidden, something not yet revealed. But sometimes, there isn't. Sometimes, what feels like a mystery is simply a story that has been repeated enough to seem real. In the case of Melissa Casias, the unsettling part isn't just the idea of a disappearance. It's the lack of anything solid to confirm it. No clear beginning, no documented middle, and no known end. Just a name, and a question that remains unanswered. Not because the truth is hidden, but because it may never have been clearly defined in the first place. Anthony Chavez. Among the names that surface in quiet corners of the internet, Anthony Chavez is one that feels both familiar and strangely untraceable. It appears in lists of alleged disappearances, often grouped with other names that are said to be connected by mystery, secrecy, or unexplained circumstances. But when you try to follow the story beyond those mentions, something unusual happens. The trail begins to fade. There is no widely recognized case file tied to his name. No confirmed timeline that explains when or where he went missing. No consistent narrative that investigators or journalists have documented. Instead, what exists are scattered references, mentions without depth, claims without sources, and a story that feels incomplete from the very beginning. And that's what makes it unsettling. Because in real disappearance cases, even when answers are missing, the structure of the event is usually clear. There is a last known moment, a place, a sequence of events that leads into the unknown. But here, that foundation is missing. It's as if the story starts in the middle, without ever showing where it truly began. Some discussions suggest that Anthony Chavez may have disappeared under unusual or suspicious conditions, hinting at possibilities that are never fully explained. But these claims remain unverified. There is no solid evidence pointing toward a confirmed disappearance, no official investigation that can be clearly identified, and no reliable documentation that supports the more dramatic versions of the story. And yet, the name continues to circulate. That's where the mystery takes a different shape. It's no longer just about a person who may have gone missing. It's about how a story can exist without a clear origin. Repetition gives it presence. The more it's shared, the more real it begins to feel, even in the absence of proof. Over time, assumptions begin to replace facts, and the unknown starts to look like something hidden rather than something undefined. But not every mystery is the result of something being concealed. Sometimes it's the result of something never being fully established in the first place. In the case of Anthony Chavez, the silence doesn't point clearly toward danger, crime, or conspiracy. Instead, it creates a different kind of uncertainty. One where the biggest question isn't what happened, but whether there was ever a confirmed story to begin with. And that's what makes it linger. Not the details, but the absence of them. Artemis, too. While names like
Reza
and others continue to circulate in the quieter corners of the internet, often dismissed as rumors or half-formed stories, something very real is happening in the present day, something that feels far removed from those whispers, yet strangely connected to the same sense of mystery. Right now, NASA is once again pushing the boundaries of human exploration. Through the Artemis 2 mission, astronauts are being sent farther into space than we've gone in decades. This isn't just another mission. It marks a return to deep space travel, a step beyond Earth's orbit, beyond what most of modern humanity has ever experienced. For the first time in over half a century, humans are traveling around the moon again, witnessing its far side with their own eyes. A region that remained hidden and unreachable for most of human history. From the outside, it looks like progress, a new era, a continuation of humanity's desire to explore the unknown. But beneath that surface, things are never that simple. Because missions like Artemis 2 are not just about exploration. They represent years of research, development, and testing that happens far away from public view. Advanced systems, experimental technologies, and human endurance studies are all part of the process. Astronauts are not just traveling, They are part of carefully controlled environments designed to test the limits of survival in deep space. Every movement, every reaction, every system is monitored, analyzed, and recorded. And that level of complexity brings with it a level of secrecy. Not necessarily something hidden for the sake of mystery, but something that isn't fully visible to the public either, which raises a question that doesn't sit comfortably. If today's missions, with all our modern technology, global attention, and transparency, still operate with layers of restricted information and highly controlled environments, then what about the past? What about the years when space programs were even more secretive? When communication wasn't as open? When information wasn't shared instantly across the world? And when experimental research could exist almost entirely behind closed doors? It's in that gap between what we see and what we don't that stories like
Reza
begin to feel different. Because whether those stories are real, exaggerated, or completely misunderstood, they tap into something deeper. A feeling that there are aspects of scientific progress, especially at the highest levels, that remain out of reach for the average person, not because they're necessarily dangerous, but because they're complex, controlled, and not meant for public interpretation. And when names start appearing, names that are said to be missing, connected in some way to advanced research or sensitive environments, it creates a narrative. One that blends reality with speculation, fact with uncertainty. But here's where it becomes truly unsettling. Because the question isn't just whether those stories are true. It's why they continue to exist alongside real-world advancements like Artemis 2. Why, as humanity reaches farther into space, there are still whispers on Earth about people who may have been connected to that journey and then disappeared from the public eye. Maybe it's coincidence, maybe it's misunderstanding, or maybe it's simply the human tendency to search for patterns in places where information is incomplete. But the timing makes it hard to ignore. As astronauts look down at Earth from distances never experienced in generations, as they pass over the far side of the Moon, a place once completely hidden from us, it creates a strange contrast. We are seeing more than ever before. And yet, there are still things we don't see at all. So the real question isn't just about the missions or the technology or even the people involved. It's this: as we continue to explore the unknown beyond our planet, how much of what happens behind the scenes truly stays there? And if something or someone ever slipped through those unseen layers, would we even know?